To anyone looking from the outside, Jamil and I had the perfect marriage. We were the couple everyone admired, successful, happy, with a picture-perfect family, and a life that seemed untouched by the world's troubles. Our friends envied us. Strangers complimented us. And we believed, perhaps naively, that nothing could ever shake the foundation we'd built together. But then, like a storm that quietly gathers on the horizon, something changed. I didn't see it coming, not at first. How could I? Everything was so right. Our home was filled with laughter. Our kids were thriving. And Jamil was everything I ever wanted. His love, his support, his steadiness. He was the kind of man you dream of when you're young. The kind you think you'll never find. I used to lie in bed at night, listening to him breathe, thinking we're unstoppable. Our love was the kind people wrote songs about. It was easy, effortless, and it made me feel safe. Safe enough to let my guard down. Safe enough to forget how fragile trust really is. It happened in the blink of an eye. One careless remark. A joke, that's all it was. At a dinner with friends, I made a flippant comment about cheating. Nothing serious, just a laugh, a throwaway line to get a chuckle. But when I looked at Jamil after the words left my mouth, I saw something in his eyes that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't amusement. It was hurt, a flash of something deeper, something darker. I thought I'd misread him, but deep down I knew this wasn't just a joke to him. And that was the moment I realized I'd crossed a line I didn't even know existed. I had no idea then how that one offhand remark would spiral into something that would destroy everything we built. What seemed like nothing to me would become the reason Jamil walked away, the reason our perfect marriage came to an end. It was meant to be nothing, a throwaway line, a laugh to lighten the mood, just a joke. Isn't that what people do at dinner parties? Crack a silly comment to get a rise out of group? I never imagined that one innocent, offhand remark could change everything. The night had been going so smoothly. We were surrounded by friends, the conversation flowing easily, drinks in hand, the atmosphere light and carefree. Everything felt comfortable, perfect, even. I felt safe in that bubble of laughter, not realizing how fragile it really was. And then, without thinking, I said it. If I ever cheated on Jamil, he'd never know. He's too trusting. He just doesn't see it coming. I laughed as I said it. Of course. A casual remark meant to draw a chuckle from the table. No one was supposed to take it seriously. It was just a joke. A joke about how trusting Jamil was, about how he'd never suspect me of doing anything wrong. But the moment the words left my mouth, I saw something in Jamil's eyes that I couldn't ignore. It was a flicker, just a flash, but it was enough. His smile faded, his eyes narrowed, and in that instant, I felt the shift. I could feel the temperature in the room drop by a few degrees. His gaze didn't leave mine, and the laughter around us seemed to evaporate into thin air. I tried to cover it up, to laugh a little louder, to turn it into some playful banter. But Jamil wasn't laughing. He was looking at me as though he had just seen a completely different side of me, a side he didn't like. For a moment, I thought I had misread him. It's just a joke, I kept telling myself. I waved it off, hoping the awkward tension would pass. But it didn't. He didn't even respond, just turned his attention to the others at the table, the walls between us rising in an instant. The rest of the evening was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything but that look in his eyes. As we left the party, I tried to make light of it, nudging him playfully. Come on, don't tell me you actually believe I'd do something like that. But Jamil didn't smile. His jaw was tight, his lips pressed together in a way I hadn't seen before. It's not funny, he muttered, his voice low and distant. What do you mean? It was just a joke. I replied, brushing it off as though it were nothing. But the more I spoke, the more I realized that Jamil wasn't listening. He wasn't looking at me the same way anymore. The space between us was widening, stretching out like an invisible chasm that I couldn't cross. When we got home, I expected him to pull me close, to laugh at how ridiculous the whole thing was. Instead, he turned away from me, his back to me as he got ready for bed. Jamil, I called after him, my voice strained. What's going on? You're acting like I did something wrong. He didn't answer. I stood there, frozen, watching him, my husband, the man I loved, acting like a stranger. And that's when the realization hit me. This wasn't just a joke to him. To Jamil, that offhand comment had cut deeper than I ever imagined. It had planted a seed of doubt, something I could never have expected. What was once a playful joke had become a wedge between us. And as the silence stretched between us that night, I wondered, was this the moment everything started to fall apart? The change was subtle at first, like the quiet before a storm, but it didn't take long for me to feel it. Jamil wasn't the same. He wasn't cold exactly. He was just distant. It was in the way he looked past me instead of at me when we spoke, in the silence that stretched too long between us. It was in the way he held his coffee, not with his usual warmth, but with a strange attachment, as if the mornings we once shared together weren't quite as important anymore. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe he was tired. Maybe the week had been hard for him at work. But as the days passed, that explanation started to feel weaker, less convincing. I knew Jamil, knew how he looked when something was truly bothering him. This wasn't exhaustion. This was something else. Something I couldn't put my finger on. I tried to shake it off. I laughed it off. "What's going on with you lately?" I asked, trying to catch his eye over breakfast. But he barely looked up from his phone. His answer was curt, "I'm fine." And that was it. I wasn't fine. I wasn't even close to fine. But Jamil had already closed off. I could feel in the way he exhaled, in the way he barely touched my hand as we sat next to each other. It was like he was here, but not here. I thought about that night, the joke, and I tried to convince myself it wasn't the cause. It was just a joke, I kept telling myself. I didn't mean anything by it. But the more I thought about it, the more the words echoed in my mind. Had I hurt him in some way? Had I crossed a line without realizing it? I decided to reach out. After all, I couldn't just let things stay like this. "Do you want to talk?" I asked, that familiar, hopeful part of me desperate to fix whatever was slipping through my fingers. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. What's there to talk about? There was so much to talk about. There had to be. The silence in our house felt suffocating. It was the kind of silence that screamed without making a sound. I could feel the walls going up between us, one brick at a time, and with every passing day, those walls grew higher. The more I tried to close the distance, the more Jamil pulled away. It was like I was chasing something that was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. One evening, as he was getting ready to leave for work, I noticed his phone vibrating on the kitchen counter. A message. I didn't mean to look, but it was impossible not to notice the name flashing across the screen. Jemima. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her name, but the way my stomach clenched, the way my pulse quickened, told me it was different this time. He'd mentioned Jemima before, his co-worker, the one who always had a great idea, the one he laughed a little too much when he spoke about her. He'd never given her name so much as a second thought in front of me, but something about it now felt like a warning sign. Why was he so close to her? I didn't want to entertain the thought. I couldn't, but as I stared at his phone, the creeping feeling of suspicion wrapped itself around my chest, squeezing tighter with every second. That night, Jamil was distant again, barely present as we ate dinner in silence. I asked him about his day, something I'd always done, something we'd always done, but the conversation never picked up. He responded in monosyllables, barely looking up from his plate. When he finally spoke, it wasn't to me, but to the space between us. "I'm just tired," he muttered, but I could tell it wasn't just tiredness that was weighing on him. It was something darker, something heavier. I tried to reach for his hand, hoping to pull him back, hoping to feel the warmth that used to be there, but he pulled away before my fingers could even brush against his. The rejection stung more than I wanted to admit. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Had I pushed him away somehow? Had I made a mistake I couldn't undo? The worst part? I didn't know if it was because of the joke. I didn't know if it was Jemima. All I knew was that something was broken. Something had changed. And I could feel it in every glance, every word, every moment we shared. I wasn't sure what to do anymore. I wasn't sure how to fix it. The silence in our home felt like a gaping wound I couldn't heal, and no matter how many times I tried to stitch it up, the damage was already done. The silence in our house was suffocating, the kind of quiet that fills your chest with a heavy weight. Every day, I watched Jamil pull further away from me, as if he was a stranger, not the man I had built my life with. I tried to ignore it at first. I tried to tell myself it was just a phase, that maybe he was stressed or just tired. But I couldn't deny it any longer. Something was terribly wrong. And that night, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. The kids were in bed. The house empty, but for the two of us, the tension was thick, hanging between us like a noose. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't pretend that everything was okay. I could feel the weight of the air in the room, and I knew if I didn't confront him now, I might lose him forever. I turned to him, my voice shaking but firm. "Jamil, we need to talk." He didn't even look up from his phone. He just kept scrolling, his fingers moving absently over the screen. The moment I said those words, I felt the walls go up between us, thicker than I'd ever seen them. But I wasn't backing down this time. "No, we really need to talk," I repeated, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's so clearly not. You've been shutting me out for days, and I can't keep guessing what's going on. Please tell me. I watched him, his jaw tightening, the muscles in his neck tensing, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he just sat there, cold and silent, like he was holding his breath, waiting for the storm to pass. Finally, his eyes flickered up to mine, and I saw something that I hadn't expected. Pain. Not anger, not frustration, just pain. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice quiet but unsteady. "I've been thinking about everything, and I think we're done." I froze. The words hit me like a slap, so sharp and sudden that I couldn't even catch my breath. What do you mean we're done?" My voice cracked, but I couldn't help it. This couldn't be happening. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. His gaze was distant, but I could see it, the uncertainty, the regret. "I met with a lawyer," he added, his voice barely above a whisper. I felt my stomach drop. "A lawyer? Why would you do that? We're fine. Jamil, we're just going through a rough patch. That's all. Please don't do this." I reached out to him, but he pulled away, his body tense, his eyes shuttered. "It's not just a rough patch," he said, his tone cold and final. "That joke you made, it wasn't funny. I can't just forget about it." "Jamil," I gasped, horrified. "It was a joke. You know I didn't mean it. It was stupid, and I regret saying it, but it was just a joke. You're blowing this way out of proportion." But his eyes, the way they hardened, the way they filled with so much hurt, told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't hearing me. "I can't unhear it," he said. "I can't just pretend that everything's fine when you said something like that. I can't look at you the same way anymore." A cold, paralyzing wave of realization crashed over me. You can't be serious. You're going to throw away everything we built over one joke." His gaze flicked to me then, his eyes almost vacant, as if the man I once knew was slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. "Trust is everything," he said, his voice breaking as the words fell from his lips. "And once it's gone, it's gone. I've been trying to make it work, but I can't anymore." I felt a burning pain in my chest, like my heart was being ripped apart. "Please, Jamil, please, don't do this. I love you. I'll do anything. Just don't throw everything away." He stood up then, slowly, like he was weighed down by something heavier than just his own words. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," he repeated, his voice dull now. "I don't think I can trust you again. I can't live like this." I stood there, unable to move, the world around me spinning, as his words tore through me like shards of glass. The man I loved, my husband, was leaving me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. "Jamil," my voice cracked as I took a step toward him, my heart pounding. "Don't walk away from us. Please. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't." But his face was already hard, his steps already taking him toward the door. Without a word, he turned and left, and I was left standing there, alone. The house was quiet, too quiet, and in that silence, I could feel everything slipping away. Every promise we had made, every dream we'd shared, every moment of joy, it all vanished in an instant. I collapsed onto the couch, numb, as the sound of the door clicking shut echoed through the house. And with it, the reality sank in. It was over. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. All I could do was sit there, frozen in the aftermath of Jamil's departure, the silence pressing around me like a suffocating fog. The house felt colder without him, as though his absence had stolen all the warmth, all the life that had once filled these walls. The laughter, the shared moments, the comfort of knowing we were in this together, gone. All of it was gone, and all I had left were the echoes of a mistake I couldn't undo. It was just a joke. I kept whispering to myself, over and over, like a mantra, but it didn't feel like the truth anymore. The words sounded empty, hollow. How had I ever thought that was funny? How could I have been so careless, so thoughtless? I could still see his face in my mind, the way he looked at me, like I was a stranger, like I had betrayed him. The pain in his eyes was more than I could bear. I had seen that look before, but never from him, never in our marriage. His face had hardened, his heart had closed, and in that moment, I realized that something had snapped inside him that I couldn't fix. I walked through the house, aimlessly, my hands brushing over things that used to bring me comfort. Our wedding photo on the wall, the picture of us on our honeymoon. But now they were just reminders of what I had lost. The weight of the empty space between us grew heavier with every step. I couldn't escape it. The house was full of memories, but those memories felt like they were slipping through my fingers, like sand in the wind. Why didn't I see it sooner? I whispered to myself. Why didn't I realize how deeply my words had cut him? The truth crashed over me like a wave I couldn't outrun. I had ruined everything. A single joke, one careless comment, and it was over. I had destroyed the trust that we had worked so hard to build. And for what? To get a laugh? To be the life of the party? How could I have been so selfish? I thought back to that night, to the laughter at the table, the easy conversations, the way I had just thrown the words out there without thinking. I never imagined it would go this far. I never imagined it would break us. But the reality was stark. I had broken him. I want to call him, beg him to come back, to tell him that it was a mistake, that I didn't mean it, that I was sorry. But even as I reached for my phone, I knew it wouldn't matter. It was too late. Once trust is gone, it's gone. His words echoed in my head, and with each passing moment, I realized how true they were. I had broken the one thing that held us together, and now there was no going back. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where he used to sit, the place where we used to share our lives. My heart ached with the weight of the loss of him, the loss of everything we had. And the hardest part? Knowing that I had brought this on myself. The house felt too quiet, too still, like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wanted to scream, to make it all stop, to go back to that moment before I had made that stupid joke. But I couldn't. All I had now was regret, and the bitter taste of knowing that I had lost the one person who had meant everything to me. The silence in the house was deafening. Days blurred into one another, each moment stretching endlessly, but all I could hear in the quiet was the weight of what I had lost. The house that once echoed with laughter and love now felt like a mausoleum, its walls holding only the remnants of memories I could no longer touch. I went through the motions, making meals, putting on a smile for the kids, but I wasn't really there. I was somewhere else, in the dark corners of my own mind, replaying the moment over and over, wondering where it had all gone wrong. Jamil had been my anchor, my constant, and now I was adrift. The finality of his departure settled over me like a heavy fog. I thought maybe it was a dream, that if I woke up, he'd be there beside me, his arms around me, telling me it was all okay. But no amount of wishing could undo the truth. He was gone, and all of this, everything I had lost, was because of a few careless words I had let slip, words I thought were harmless, but were anything but. It was just a joke, I kept telling myself. But the more I repeated it, the more I realized how shallow those words were. A joke, a laugh. It seemed so small, so insignificant in the moment. But the truth was, it had shattered something deep inside Jamil. The trust we had built over years, the love that had once felt unbreakable, had crumbled because of something I'd said without thinking. I had never understood how much words could hurt until it was too late. I had never realized how fragile trust was, how easily it could be shattered, until I found myself standing in the ruins of my own making. Now, I had no way of fixing it, no way of taking back the pain I had caused. I couldn't undo the damage. I couldn't make him believe in me again. And that was the hardest part. I had learned a painful truth. Words matter. They linger. They leave scars that time can't erase. And in the end, no apology, no regret could ever take back what had been broken. I couldn't change the past. But the weight of this lesson would stay with me, a constant reminder that the things we say can leave marks that last a lifetime.